Hey guys, in this video we're going to talk about loops and iteration. So a loop is an instruction that repeats until a specific condition is reached. So for instance, at the end of an array or when a certain number is reached, loops are used to run the same block of code using different values each time. Alright, now there's multiple ways to run iterations in JavaScript and in most languages. The three most popular types of general loops are for loops, while loops, and do while loops. Okay, these are general loops and they're found in most programming languages. So we're going to cover the general loops and then we're going to look at array specific iteration with for each and map, and then we're also going to take a quick look at for in, which is used to basically loop or iterate through objects so we can get key value pairs. Alright, so let's go ahead and start with a for loop. Okay, so we're going to say for, it's set up like a function, and it takes in three parameters that are separated by semicolons. So the first is going to be the declaration of a variable, so we're going to say let. Okay, you always want to use either var or let. You can't use const inside a loop because it's going to keep changing. Alright, so we're going to set I equal to 0. I is used very common. You'll also see x, but you can use anything. And the second parameter is going to be the condition. So let's say as long as I, let's put a space here, we'll say as long as I is less than 10. Alright, so that's our condition. And then the last parameter is going to be an increment of I, so I plus plus. Now I plus plus basically just means this, I equals I plus 1. Okay, so it's just going to add 1 to whatever I is. Now each time this goes through, it iterates, I is going to be increased by 1. Okay, it starts at 0, it's going to go through, it's going to be 0, then it's going to be 1, 2, and so on, up until this is no longer true. Okay, up until I is no longer less than 10. So let's go ahead and just do a console log of I and save, and let's see what we get. So we get 0 through 9. Notice 10 is not included because 10 is not less than 10. Now if we were to change this to less than or equal to 10 and save, then it'll actually include 10 in the loop. Alright, so we can do anything we want within the loop. For instance, if we wanted to log the string number and then just concatenate the I like that, we could say number 0 through number 9. Alright, now I'm going to show you a couple things. I want to show you how to break out of the loop and also how to skip an iteration if we want, or to do something else during a specific iteration. And these apply to all the loops, okay? For, while, do while, but I'm going to demonstrate them on the for loop. Alright, so let's say that for number 2, when it hits number 2, we want it to say something different, like my favorite number is 2. Alright, so what we would do here, let me just comment this out, is we would put an if statement. So we'd say if, and we'll say if I is equal to 2, then let's do a console.log, and we'll just say 2 is my favorite number. Alright, and then actually I want this console log to be down here. Alright, so let's go ahead and save that. And if we look at this, we get number 0, number 1, and then it hits this if statement, console logs 2 is my favorite number, and then it keeps going, but notice that it still does number 2, so it still fires this off. Now, if you want to do this instead of this, what you could do is use the continue. Okay, the continue statement. So we'll just say continue like that. So what that's going to do is it's basically going to stop the loop here and just go to the next iteration without continuing to go on after that if statement. So let's save that, and now you'll see there is no number 2. It's been replaced with 2 is my favorite number. Alright, so continue just means keep going with the loop. Go to the next iteration. Alright, now we also have break, and what break does is, as you probably guessed, it just breaks out of the loop. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to say if I is equal to, let's say 5, then let's break. All right, so we'll go ahead and save. We get number 0, number 1, 2 is my favorite number, 3, 4, and that's it. It broke out. All right, and you can do something here if you want as well. We can say console log, and we'll say stop the loop and save. All right, so you can break and continue. These are really important statements to know, to understand how these work within loops. All right, so that's a for loop. Now let's take a look at a while loop. Let's go ahead and comment this out, and let's go ahead and put in a while loop. All right, so it's really preference on what you want to use. I tend to use for loops more. One general rule that you'll hear sometimes is that you should use a for loop when you know how many times it's going to run, how many iterations it's going to have, and then use a while loop when you don't, when it's unclear. But that's not, it's not always black and white. So how we set up a while loop is we set the variable outside of the loop. So let's say let I equals 0. And then down here, let's do while, and then our condition. Our condition is the only thing that goes in here. It's not like the for loop where we put all that stuff in. All we want is the condition, which is going to be if I is less than 10. All right, and then inside the while loop is where we do whatever we want to do. In this case, I'm just going to console log, and we'll just say number I. And then we need to do our increment here, so I++. Okay, you want to make sure you do your increment inside the while loop. All right, so let's go ahead and save this, and we get, as expected, number 0 to number 9. All right, so this works in this situation the same way that it worked with the for loop. All right, so that's a while loop. Now let's take a look at a do while loop. All right, now a do while loop is different because it's always going to run at least once no matter what. Okay, and I'll show you what I mean. So we're going to say let I equals 0, and then we're going to say do, open up some curly braces. In here we'll do a console.log, and we'll just say number I, and we're going to do our increment. And then under the do, we do a while, and that's going to have our condition, all right, which is going to be I is less than 10. So let's save that, and we get the same exact thing that we got with the while loop. Now, what's different about this is always going to run no matter what, okay, this do right here, even if this condition isn't met. So if we were to set this I to 100, which obviously is not less than 10, and we save, you'll see that it's going to run anyways. So we get number 100. All right, so that's the big difference between a while and a do while, is that it's always going to run once no matter what. All right, now I want to show you how we can use loops to loop through arrays. Now, like I said, arrays have specific methods for looping through, which I would suggest using over like a for loop or something, but you can do it. So let's go ahead and create an array. We'll say cars, and we'll set it to an array of just car names. So we'll say Ford, Chevy, Honda, and we'll say Toyota. All right, so we have these car names, and then we can do a for loop. So we can say let I equals 0, and then the condition is going to be if I is less than, and then the array name, which is cars dot length, because we can count the number of values in the array. All right, and then we just want to do I++. So in this case, cars.length is going to equal 4 because we have 4 values in there. So in here, we can say console.log. Now, if we just log I, we'll get 0, 1, 2, 3. Now remember, we can access arrays or array values by just saying like cars1. Well, cars1 would equal Chevy because there's 0 base, so this would be Chevy. Now in the array, in the loop, we're going 0 through 3. So what we could do if we want to output the car names is we could console log cars and then wrap that I inside a set of brackets. That way the first iteration it's going to be cars 0, which will be Ford. The next one will be Chevy, Honda, Toyota. So we'll save, and now we can get the names of the cars. Okay, and obviously anything that is inside of this array. Alright, and you can do the same thing with a while loop. Just, use cars.length where we did the condition right here. So instead of a solid number, we would use the length of the array. Alright, so let me just, let's say loop through array. Alright, now I'm going to comment out the for loop, and we're going to take a look at a for each array loop. So for this, what we'll do is take the array name and say dot for each. Okay, now this for each method, it takes in a callback function. So it takes in a self-calling function like this. Not a self-calling function, an anonymous function. And then it can take in 3 different things, but you really only need one, and that is whatever you want to use as the current iteration or the iterator. So I'm just going to use car. I think that makes sense since we're dealing with cars. Sometimes you'll see like current or car or something like that, but I like to use the singular name of the array. Alright, so what we'll do here is just console.log car. Alright, and save, and we get the same thing. So you can see how much cleaner this looks than this. So I would always suggest using a for each loop if you're trying to loop through an array for some reason. Alright, let's put a comment here. Now we also have a method called map, and map can work in a few different ways actually, but it's basically used to return something different, so to return a different array. So what I'm going to do here is I'm going to create an object of users. Alright, I'm sorry, an array of objects of users. So we'll say ID 1 name John, and we'll just put a couple. So ID 2 name Sarah, and ID 3 name Karen. Alright, so we have these users. Now what I'm going to do here is set another variable called IDs, and what I want to do is I want to take this array of objects and I want to create an array of the IDs for these users. Alright, so I'm going to set this to users.map, and then map takes in a function just like for each. Actually, there's a couple things with for each I forgot to show you. I'm going to show you in a second. So in here we're going to say user, okay, just like we did with the for each, and then we're going to return user.id. Okay, so it's going to loop through and it's going to return each ID inside of an array. So now if I want to go down here, I can console.log IDs and save, and now I have an array of the user IDs. Alright, if I were to add another user here, sorry about that, if I were to add another user, let's say Steve, and save, you'll see that now we get Steve's ID, which is 4. Alright, so that's map, and there's a lot more to map as well, and we'll get into that later on. But I just want to show you real quick with for each. Like I said, there's 3 things that this can take in. One is the iterator. The next is the index. So index, if we want to go down here, let's actually make this a template string, and we'll put in this syntax, and we'll say index. We'll put a colon, and then we'll put the value, which is car, and save, and you can see that it starts at 0 and just increments by 1. Alright, another thing we can pass in is the actual array, so the entire array, so we can access that if we say console.log array and save, and now you'll see you can access the whole array, and it's gonna loop through each time and show each time. Alright, so I just wanted to mention that real quick. Now the last thing I want to show you is a for in loop, which is often used for objects. So let's create a single object called user, and we'll give this user a first name and last name and age. Alright, so we have this user. Now what I'm going to do is I'm going to say for. Okay, so it starts off like a regular for loop, and then we're going to do for let x in user. Alright, so it's called a for in loop. And then in here, first thing I'll do is console log x. Let's see what that gives us. Alright, so x is going to give us the keys. Alright, so inside of an object we have a key and a value. These are key value pairs. So x will give us just the key. Now if we want to get the object, what we can do, I'm going to put a template string in here. We'll put the key and then a colon, and then if we want the value, what we can do is we can say user, and then some brackets and then x. Alright, so if we save that, now you can see we're basically looping through the object and getting the key value pairs. Alright, so that is a for in loop. Alright, so that's going to do it, guys, for this video. We're going to get more into iteration later on, especially in our projects. But these are the basics, the general loops, and you have specific methods for arrays and objects. Alright, thanks for watching, and I'll see you in the next video.